end of his consumer, you have to deliver for them. This channel. I remember my mother also died of cancer, lung cancer, and entertainment, Capri.
You know, I had a choice in that process where I made myself
registered deep thoughts, but she has a loving heart.
in the therapy.
Glenn Kaplan, welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, I am glad you're here. I love thrillers and mysteries and intrigue. So this is right up my alley. And because March is Women's History Month and yesterday was International Women's Day, this is a perfect story to talk about in light on reflecting of women and their accomplishments. And even if it's a fictional woman, it still supports real women and our desires and how we want to meet success. So
Absolutely.
let's just dive. So let's first dive into, though, however, your background. And you went from the corporate world and became a writer. Tell us about your journey to becoming a writer.
Well, I was always interested in reading and in writing. And so I wrote, all growing up and whatnot. I was an English major and an art major. And after a time in the international art world, I went into the advertising business as a copywriter. And so that is write all day long. And
Yes.
I worked on all sorts of big brands like Diet Coke and Johnson & Johnson and IBM
Wow.
and Bacardi rum and stuff like that.
Yes.
Very, very interesting to be in the world of advertising. And then after about 20 years or so, I became the client. I became the creative director at Barnes & Noble. And
Oh.
that was great because I'd written and published several books before that time. And
Yeah.
it'd be right smack dab in the middle of the two worlds that I really liked, which was
Ugh.
the marketing world and the communications world and the media world and the world of books. And so
Yes.
it was just perfect. And it was great to, be just drowning in books all day long, which clearly you're bookaholic. That's the way you like to live and the way
Yeah.
you like to work as
Exactly.
well. And so I had two books published while I was still working my full-time job at Barnes & Noble. And I had two previous when I was in the advertising business.
Right.
And then, Barnes & Noble all changed and I moved on. And that gave me the opportunity to work on Angel of Ambition full-time. Actually, the COVID lockdown helped.
Oh.
It was my project. I did not make any banana bread or sourdough starters, but instead I wrote Angel of Ambition. And I got that done. Although I don't want to live through another lockdown again. So, I mean, nobody.
No, I don't want to live through another lockdown. What I was doing was shopping.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, there was a truck, FedEx, UPS,
Whoa.
stopping by my house just about every single day.
Good for
And
you.
my
Well,
husband would say,
you were your own economic stimulus program for the
I
whole
was,
economy.
I was.
That's great.
I just remember my husband saying, "You're not going anywhere. Where are you going to be wearing these things?"
Yeah.
So it was just funny. But at least you were productive. You were super productive and making a difference during the lockdown. Now, with when you worked at Barnes and Noble, is that when you wrote your other two books, Evil Ink and Poison Pill?
Yes, and I had two books before that in my other life, but those were the two thrillers. And so what I used to do, because I had a full-time job, and we had an autistic son who lived with us at the time. He's now placed in a beautiful farm program. So I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. And it was actually really good for a number of reasons. First of all, the house was quiet. Everybody else was asleep. secondly, in terms of writing fiction, what was really wonderful about that time of day is the real world had not yet intruded. No phone calls, no problems, no hassles, no headaches. And so
Mhm,
I was able, with just a cup of good coffee and my
mhm,
screen, I could just go into my world without
mhm,
interruption, and
mhm.
those characters and whatnot would, do their dramas for me and surprise me
Right.
and talk to each other the way they do.
Yes.
It was very productive. And then round about 6:37, mom would get up, our son would get up, the world would begin, real life would begin, put
Yep.
that away, and then go off to my job and the things that we all have to do.
Wow, you are apparently super disciplined. So that's one thing that I'm getting from
Part
you.
of it too is, and this actually sort of annoyed my wife, because I became a very early going to bed person.
Oh,
By
yeah.
9:05, I was like, my eyes would droop. I gotta go to bed, which was like, you're no fun. We want to do something. Don't you want to watch Netflix with me? I want to go to bed.
Okay, so maybe between books, you can balance out
Yeah.
watching Netflix with
Yes.
her and then
I owe my wife. I absolutely owe my wife some quality Netflix time. There's no question about it.
that's right, exactly. Well, apparently, from reading the title of the two books that I just mentioned, Poison Pill and Evil Ink, and Angel of Ambition, thrillers is your bailiwick. It's your thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, they're not typical thrillers in many ways. More character driven, um,
Mhm.
and uh, they're not that violent. I don't
Okay.
really understand or get into violence that much, and in terms
Mhm.
of I'm not really much of a whodunit person, because I've discovered in my life I don't care who done it. I don't care. I mean, I'm interested in the characters. I'm interested in the story. I'm interested in the story that takes you to places where you didn't know you were going to go. That has
Yeah.
some fun and some glamour and conflict. But I'm not a big one on murder mysteries and whodunits.
Right, right. And I'm not saying that you're this writer, but based on what you just said, it kind of made me flash back to people like Judith Krantz, maybe. She always had a rags to riches type story. And when the person got to the riches, it was really glamorous. You know, when they were in the rags area, it was really rags. So, yeah. And it sounds like an angel ambition, you kind of have a character that's going through that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I remember when I was much younger, reading Judith Krantz, actually, and Sidney Sheldon and
Yeah.
writers like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Those kind of sagas. And but Angel and Ambition is the story of Angela Hansen,
Mhm.
this woman who rises to the very top of society um, in her own way. She's a bad
Mhm.
girl. She's a
Yeah.
bad. She's a badass.
Yeah.
But I think she's got a heart and a soul underneath it. And one of the things that she says, the book opens with a passage that a lot of particularly women readers have said really touched them. She opens the book with a letter to the daughter she might hope to have someday. And
Ah.
she said, listen, I grew up in real poverty. I had nothing. I had to learn everything. I had to scramble like crazy. I had to
Mhm.
do things that maybe you won't approve of, but
Mhm.
I want you, this daughter of mine, to feel entitled to having a good life.
Mhm.
I grew up with the feeling that I wasn't entitled to that, and I had to
Mhm.
fight like crazy
Right.
to earn the right to win a bigger life than what
Right.
the world was telling me I was gonna be able to get, and I did some bad things, and maybe you
Right.
think I'm a monster, but you'll make up your own mind. But but
Right.
but then she says, "I want you to feel entitled to having a wonderful life, and the glittery things are great, but you'll learn just the way everyone else learns, that the glittery things won't really make you happy.
Right. Right. Right.
They're
Wow.
they're very wonderful, they're very nice, but they're not really gonna make you happy, and everybody learns that at some point in their lives. But I
Yeah.
she says, "But I do want you to feel entitled to the one luxury that I, your mother, knew I could never afford because of what I had to do to get ahead. And that
Mhm.
is the luxury of giving in to the power of love. And so she learns. So what she learns is the sacrifice that she had to make. This character, Angela, the angel of ambition, was
Mhm.
she gave that up. She knew she always had to hold herself tight. She had to
Right.
protect herself. She had to be on her guard. She had
Yes.
to be careful that somebody wasn't going to pull the rug out from underneath her. And she
Yes.
knew that she did not have the luxury of being able to give in to the power of love. She knew that other people lived that way and did have that luxury. And as much money as she got, that was
Right.
something she could not afford to do.
Right. Well,
She says to her daughter, I want you to have that.
yes. Yes, yes. Well, a person climbing to the top and they've been in these negative, desperate situations, love can take you off your guard. It makes you vulnerable. You can be blinded by love and then make a mistake, that can really unravel you mentally and financially.
Yes,
So, I'm sure that's where she was. I'm not going to be unraveled by love, but I'm going to sustain you, my future daughters, with enough money and security that you will have the pleasure of falling in love, making a mistake in love, whatever.
that's
The
exactly
luxury.
that's exactly it. And if I can prep the sequel that I'm sort of noodling right now, can I do that? Is that okay on your mic?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. Yes, you can.
All right.
Please
So,
express
so,
yourself.
so in the sequel that I'm working on, and right now it's just some scribbles, in a notebook.
Mhm.
One of the things that happens is she does have that baby daughter, and and now she's this very rich lady, and she's done some
Mhm.
badass stuff, but she has this baby daughter, and she has
Mhm.
all these feelings after giving birth, being
Mhm.
overwhelmed, the overwhelming experience of childbirth. You know,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
what it does to
I've
her
been there.
body, what it does to her soul, what it does to her
Yes.
emotions and all that. And she's sort of trying to ride this tsunami, and she knows it's overwhelming. And at the
Right.
very end of the scene that I'm planting, that I'm noodling right now, she
Yeah.
goes, "Oh my God, the one thing that this baby has done is the one thing that I fought for my whole life. It's made me vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I know that I can be hurt like I never dreamed I could be hurt through this baby, through some twist of fate or any of those things. And so as much as she's overwhelmed by the love of having this new baby, she's also overwhelmed with fear because for the first time, she's exposed and vulnerable as she's never been
Yes.
before. And so that's
Yeah.
that's going to trigger the way the story goes, at least in the notes right now.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. And I might add, when and if you do a sequel, you are certainly welcome back
Oh,
to
thank
this
you. I would love.
channel to talk about it and continue our conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. And I read in your notes you're a New York Times best-selling author. What did that when you first got graced with that title, how did that make you feel? What did that do for you professionally?
I couldn't believe it was happening. Um,
Mhm,
and the way that works, it was different than this was like in '07.
mhm,
But still, what it has to do with it isn't to get on the list, as I understand it, and I'm not
okay.
an expert in this. It isn't so much about the number of books that are sold; it's about the velocity at which they are sold during a given period. Uh,
Oh,
And so I had a couple of really good weeks of sales, and that pushed it first to number 20 and then to number 23.
wow.
Um, and it was tremendously exciting, and it's a wonderful credential to have in the publishing business. Uh,
Yes.
but in terms of the riches and fame, let me tell you a little story. So
Okay.
the week that it appeared at number 20, I also got a statement from my literary agent. And I opened
Yes.
it up and I said to my wife, I said, look, here's the statement. I said, we're number 20 on the New York Times bestseller list. The book has already earned out and it had just recently been published. I said, and I've got a check. And my wife said, well, how much is the check? And I said, $300. And she goes, nice. Because the
She
book publishing business,
she said, "I'm gonna go back to watch Netflix."
yeah, yeah, you got it. You got it. Yeah.
Wow, and I'm glad you told that story because a lot of times people will hear New York Times best-selling author and they're thinking, "Oh, wow, millions and millions and millions of dollars." And the reality is, I guess, just like anything else, it starts slowly and then it can blossom or snowball into something larger.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there are, but there. It's kind of like the movie business. You think about how many people are actors and directors, and
Hmm.
they just sort of manage to get by if they're lucky. And there are a few people, just a very few people, who make all this money, and it's similar. It's a similar thing.
Wow, wow.
So,
But I mean, but you're doing it full time though.
well, now I am. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't have my corporate job anymore,
Right.
and so I can devote myself to this. And
Yes.
I was fortunate, to have had a really good career and good jobs and stuff like that. So
Right.
it's all worked out very well. And the
Right.
lockdown actually helped me. It kind of kicked me in the butt to to finish something. 'Cause what else was I going to do? You know,
Right.
right?
Well, there again, like I said, you were super productive. Now, I got my copy of Angel of Ambition, and it's a very beautiful copy. And you're published by, it says Woodhall Press,
Yeah,
and it's
they
out
are.
of the,
They are what they call an independent press, indie.
okay. Yes, I
And
see that back here.
yes, and that's an increasing trend in the book publishing business, just as independent bookstores have made a renaissance and a comeback, because people love to go to a community driven bookstore that's a part of their neighborhood, that they feel a part of that community. Um,
Mhm.
so Woodhull is one of those independent presses that's part of riding the same wave. They're wonderful folks.
Yes, yes. Well, I just visited my independent bookstore yesterday and bought 4 books. I easily spent well over $100 on
Great.
books. I mean, and I always do an intentional going to an independent bookstore or going to my local library. I
Yes.
think that's very, very, very important.
Yes,
Now
indeed.
let's talk about your sign-offs here. Praise for books by Glenn Kaplan. High suspense, big money, romance, murder, very good storytelling. Who could ask for anything more? James Patterson. Oh my gosh. Great reading ranges from Russian oligarchs to the American worlds of drug research and the equity markets, all of it in a mode of high suspense. Scott Turow. Wow. And I mean, there's one from Janet Ivanovich and Nelson DeMille. Wow, how'd you get those?
Well,
that's
um,
that's quite the sign off right
yeah,
there.
no, it is, and it's part of uh, it's part of the publishing networking business.
Okay.
So it's sometimes your agent helps. Sometimes somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. Sometimes you can send a book to an author, and many authors are very generous about taking a look. And if the author
Mhm.
likes it, they'll send you a blurb. It's a bit random, uh,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a networking thing. But
Right.
I will say that no one is going to blurb your book. If you've written a really bad book, no one's going to blurb it.
No, I can't
Because
imagine James
because it's
Patterson
because
signing
it's
off on
yeah,
just a horrible thing.
no, because it's a reflection on that person's brand.
Right,
So,
right.
if you were to send somebody, even if you had a real connection to them, and they thought this book was terrible, they'd say they wouldn't respond, or they just say, sorry, I'm too busy right now, or whatever.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's great to have that kind of validation.
Right.
Um, you know, um, but what really counts is getting readers to take a look at your new book. And the most important kind of book selling is when one person tells a friend. about a book
Yes.
that you've enjoyed.
Yes.
That is, I mean, it's more powerful than advertising. It's more powerful than social media. It's the most powerful thing when one friend recommends a book to another friend.
Most
That's what you
definitely.
try to do.
Well, I was on Facebook the other day, and one of my, not a true friend, but a friend on my page was asking for book recommendations. And people, I mean, she had a mile long list of recommendations from various Facebook friends. And, I looked through the list myself, and it's a lot of books that I had read on there, and a lot that I had not. But like you said, that is a very powerful recommendation
Yeah,
when someone, your friend, your family member signs off also on a book.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yes, most definitely. Well, you've already given us a sneak peek of what you may be working on. Are you going to make a total linear transition possibly to the sequel of Angel of Ambition, or do you also have another book in mind?
Well, I mean, like all writers, we keep scribbles in a notebook, and sometimes you may look at something years later,
Yes.
and I was at a book club the other night, and the author whose book came out this year had essentially written the entire book 10 years ago, put it in a drawer and left it.
Oh,
And what she did was during COVID lockdown, like everybody else, she was looking for something to do, and she happened to open the drawer and she said, "Oh, maybe," and it was almost completely done, and it turned into her COVID book. So there you go.
yeah.
I I really like the characters in Angel of Ambition. I really think the character of Angela is a compelling person who's very much a woman of the 21st century. Now
Mm,
she's a badass, she's a bad
mhm,
girl, but she's
mhm.
got a conscience and she's got a heart.
Yes.
And she does things that normal people like you and me wouldn't dare to do. And
Okay.
I think the part of the fun of reading a book like this, because it's escapist fiction,
Yeah,
is
great. We
it's
need that.
escapist. This is not, I mean, it's like real life, but it's
Yeah.
not real life.
Right,
And
right, right.
what I was able to live through, and what I hope the readers and the readers who've enjoyed it have been able to live through, is to live through a world that's like ours, but it's more exciting, more dangerous, more glamorous, more fun, more exotic, you
Right.
know, and it's just to live through these characters who do
Mhm.
things that you and I in our real lives would never get away with.
Right, exactly, exactly. Like half the movies and books you read, you would never get away with half this stuff.
Absolutely.
Or it would take so many years to get from A to Z that you probably whereas in books and movies, people quickly advance from, say, rags to riches.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
because it's all about telling a story that engages, so
Yes.
um, it's interesting. One of the things that I find very interesting, one of the dull things that's very interesting, is when
Mhm,
you listen to like these FBI hidden wire tapes of people
mhm.
talking, whether they're criminals or whatever, you
Right.
realize that real life dialogue is awful. It's boring. It's got holes in it. It's
Yes.
repetitive. The
Yes.
way people actually talk to each other. So if you put that in a novel or a screenplay, the audience would first fall asleep and then they'd get up and leave. So
Exactly.
so what you're creating in a fiction is this world that sounds better, more interesting, more condensed, dialogue that you want to read. You don't want, when you listen to the actual dialogue of real human beings, you don't want to
Right.
listen to it. It's boring.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Well, see, that's that craftiness of a writer or a screenplay writer. You know, if I most books, like I just mentioned, that you read or movies and TV shows, if you can have me believe that this regular person is going to do all these irregular things and I don't say, "Oh, that's fake or false," and I put the book down, you have that in and of itself is a gift. or a craft. If you can make a reader who's living a very logical day-to-day life read a book, and there's characters, the world that you created, the scenes, whatever can take you to believe the whole story and enjoy it, that's gold in and of itself.
That is the goal. That is
Mhm.
absolutely the goal. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't want you if I gave you on the page what my Tuesday was like, you wouldn't get through it. You'd go, "This is boring. I don't want to sit through this." You know? So if I'm going to give you a page of a day, I want to give you a day. You know?
Yes. Yes, 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 most definitely. Because I'm just thinking about what's in my planner, and I'm like, yeah, nobody would wanna be that would never make a motion picture or a major book,
No,
not on one day.
no.
Well, Glenn Kaplan, I appreciate you joining me today on the Bookaholic podcast. I cannot wait to read it. Like I said, again, it's a beautiful copy. I do judge books by their cover. Angel of Ambition, and even check out your other two books, Poison Pill and Evil Ink. We'll have your social media handles, ways to get the book, in the podcast show notes, as well as the YouTube video description box.
Great.
Glenn, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deirdre. It was a pleasure.